process that we wanted to cover today was our application screening process and to give you tips and tricks for what to look for. Hi, this is Mike Mefferd from Bridgestream Property Management, where it's our mission to be the bridge to multiple streams of revenue for our clients. One of our core values is we want to enhance the quality of life of the people that we serve. And one of the ways we really wanted to be able to do that is to give a peek under the covers at our different systems and processes and help those that are out there that are self-managing with how we go about doing that and the different processes that we follow. One of the most important things that you should do before you get ready to list one of your units for rent is to set very clear rental criteria for what you will or will not accept from an applicant. You want to publish that criteria and make sure that all of your applicants clearly know what you will and will not accept. This is your guideline and your foundation for how you're going to make decisions and if you're going to approve a tenant or deny a tenant. For starters, what is your minimum credit score that you will accept? What does that background check look like? What will you automatically disqualify an applicant on? What type of landlord history are you looking at? What is the income requirements that you're looking at? Some of the things that we see, and I'll go through the different criteria we use at Bridgestream and feel free to copy these and use these exactly as we do in your process. But starting with that credit check, we require at least a minimum credit score of 600. But we will go below 600 pending certain situations. And this is kind of the first key rule that I really want to highlight to you. Don't just disqualify someone immediately based on one criteria if they don't hit. Look at the application as a whole. If somebody's making 5 or 6 times the amount of rent each month, but their credit score is a little low, that may be enough based on your location and your area to make a decision to go ahead and approve them. So don't just use one section as an end-all be-all, but look at the entire application as a whole. If a credit score is below 600, for instance, you may have options to say, hey, we'd love to work with you, but can you get a cosigner to cosign on the application so that it just gives you a little bit more security on the back end should that resident not be able to pay. On the credit score too, keep in mind the unit and the area that you're trying to rent and what that resident profile looks like. That credit score could look very different in an A-class market versus a C or D class market. As you are looking at that credit score and that credit report, a couple things that you want to keep your eye out for. Make sure that they do not owe any money to their prior landlord, and they do not owe any money to any utility companies. If they owe money to a prior landlord, the odds and the likelihood that they will eventually stiff you and owe you money at the end of their lease, pretty high. Same with utility companies. If they owe a utility company, let's say it's the electric company here in Dayton, that's AES. If they owe AES money, AES is not going to turn on power for them if you approve them to move into one of your units. That means you as the landlord are going to have to continue to pay the electric bill on the tenant's behalf and billing them each month. It's just another red flag to look out for right from the start. You, again, want to look at the application as a whole in the area. So the rules are not just an end-all be-all. Sometimes you have to flex them a little bit based on the area that you're trying to rent in. The next that you're going to look at is the background check. You're looking on that background check for any convictions that show violence or a history of violence or major drug activity that would be concerns for you to rent. You also want to pay attention, though, that there are situations, even here at Bridgestream, where we've rented to people that have been convicted of certain crimes, but the story behind it, and we're able to validate and verify and then look at some other factors in the application where they're actually really great residents, but we were able to find that they were great residents by really digging into detail and not just rushing to judgment when we see one thing on a piece of paper. So I would encourage you that if all other aspects of an application look really good, don't just disqualify them. Dig deeper on that background check with the actual applicant and understand the story for what happened and what is their side of that story. Another thing to look at, positive landlord history. This is so critical that you're following up with their old landlords. They're going to tell you the dirt, if they're paying the rent on time, if they had any issues, would they re-rent to them? This is pure gold, and do not skip this in your process. If you can get in touch with them, this will really help you weed out those bad applicants right from the start. The next one's pretty self-explanatory. It's the income requirement. Here at Bridgestream, we require at least 3 times the monthly rent to be made in income each month. That's gross income. Make sure that you're getting pay stubs from that applicant. You want to see the last 4 weeks of pay stubs. Additionally, We even require bank statements. That bank statement gives you a really good peek under the covers at what the financial stability is of that resident. Do they have money in reserves? Can they afford to make your security deposit down payment? Can they afford to pay the first month's rent right away? What does that month in, month out bank statement look like and cash flow look like for that resident? It's going to help you dictate, is this someone that's going to be able to pay their rent on time, or are they going to be struggling each and every month? Additionally, as you're starting to look at the income side, really pay attention to their employment history. This is one of those red flags that you immediately can look out for. If you have an applicant that is showing that they're able to stay at the same job for 2, 3, 5, 7, 10 years, that traditionally is the sign of a very responsible person. People don't stick around at the same company if they're irresponsible and they can't follow through with their commitments. So whether they've been at the prior job for a long period of time, or they've been in their old unit for a long period of time, both of those are very good signs. You want to be very cautious and leery for people that are bouncing from one property to the next and from one employer to the next. The rest of their application better look really good if you notice that when you're going through their whole application. Some other kind of tips and tricks just so that you're aware. Once you do go through and you approve an applicant, make sure that you require them to drop off a hold deposit within 24 hours of being approved. You want to set the hook with a resident and ensure that you're creating that proper sense of urgency that once they're approved, you want to get them in, get that hold deposit, which is non-refundable, and have them sign that lease right away, which is committing them to your unit. What you don't want to do is approve an applicant, let it sit, take the unit off the market, and then wait another week for them to come. Because if they don't come, you've lost another week of opportunity, or you could be bringing in somebody new to rent that unit that you can't because you were holding it for this approved applicant. Some other things to consider as you're working with that applicant. Consider, what were they like to work with throughout the process? Did they have a lot of their information right away, or were you having to constantly follow up with them to get more? Did they treat you with kindness and respect, or were they rude with you during that time period? Look at, why are they moving? Ask them, you can ask that question. Why are you moving? What's causing you to want to make a change? Look at what type of debt do they have that's causing their credit score to be lower? Is it medical debt? Is it student loan debt? Even credit cards? Or is it debt that's more related to car loans and utilities? I mean, the type of debt is really important to look at, especially in America as we continue to rack up more and more consumer debt. And that's just not with normal residents. That is a trend across all of America. It is not necessarily an indicator that they're not going to pay their rent on time. Some other items to look out for as you're going through and you're screening the application. You really want to pay attention to the addresses that they list on the application and compare that to their credit report. Those should be very similar addresses. If you're starting to notice addresses on the credit report that are not on the application as prior addresses that they have lived in during that time period, that's a red flag and you want to dig deeper on that. Secondly, when you're doing landlord verifications, if you get a weird feeling when you're talking to a landlord that they may not be a professional landlord and they say that they are, the next thing to do is I would check on the auditor site to verify, is that actually the owner that I just talked to? You will see there's a lot of fraud in applications, and you will see people put their friends or their prior landlord for you to speak to. So just be on the lookout and definitely check the auditor site, or just try to randomly call them and tell them you're looking to rent a unit and see how they answer the phone. I can't stress this enough as a key tip, and even our team here can be guilty of it at times, and it's even worse before we even had a property management company and I was managing my own units. The biggest mistake that you can make is you get too emotional throughout the process. If you're not renting a unit fast enough and you start kind of skipping and going around your core rules that you've set for what you're going to accept in a quality applicant, and you start saying, hey, it's been sitting for 2-3 weeks, we're just going to lower our expectations for the type of resident. Be very, very cautious of that. It rarely ever works out, and you end up paying for it significantly in the long run. The cost that you will face to have to move a tenant out of your unit, the damage that they could do, the time and uncollected rent, it's so much higher than waiting an extra week to find the right quality applicant. Even if you have to lower your rent a little bit more to increase your application flow, I would recommend you always do that before you're willing to accept a lower quality applicant to put into one of your units. It's just the biggest mistake that we see out there. I strongly caution you to avoid getting just overly emotional. Be very careful in the months of November, December, and January. These are not normal leasing months, and it takes a lot longer during these months to find quality applicants and put them into one of your units. Your units naturally may sit longer than they would during summer months, which are peak moving seasons. Don't get emotional during these time periods. You may have to lower your rents slightly if you want to fill those units quickly during that time period. I do get asked the question all the time, if you're going to self-screen and you don't have a property management software like we would have here at Bridgestream that can easily do all of this for you, the best tool that I've seen out there is Zillow. Advertise your units right there on Zillow. Through the Zillow platform, you can even screen and process applications right from there. A really nice piece of software that I'd recommend to help you if you're on that self-managing front. We want to see more and more people into real estate investment, building passive income, and increasing their wealth. We just find that real estate investment is just the best tool to create generational wealth for you and your family. If we here at Bridgestream can help you in any way, if you've got questions, if you would like a free quote to manage your properties, what your rental rates should be, feel free to go check out our website at bridgestreampropertymanagement.com. It's got all of our contact information there. Feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer any questions and help you in any way that we can. Thank you so much for tuning in today and watching our series on application processing and the tips and tricks to look out for when you're screening an applicant. If you like this video and you found it helpful, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button below. It really helps us reach more people and help people make more educated decisions as they're managing their rental properties. If you want more content like this, we're going to be publishing new content every week to help the self-managing landlord. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button to get those updates as they come out. Until next time.